අලුතෙන් SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE connection ගන්නාට වටිනා tab computers සහ data දීමනා. අලුතෙන් SLT Mobitel Home 4G LTE connection ගන්නාට වටිනා tab computers සහ data දීමනා.
නව පෑස් සබන් සහ ක්‍රීම් ජාත්‍යන්තර ළමා රෝග පිළිබඳ විශේෂඥයන් විසින් සායනිකව තහවුරු කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
Tonight, tall order. The 5th BIMSTEC Summit sees calls for regional security cooperation and a connectivity master plan.
It is essential that littoral nations work together to ensure that threats to these waters are curtailed.
We must move forward at a fast pace on connectivity-related initiatives.
Lights out. The Public Utilities Commission approves a mega 13-hour power cut for tomorrow. Free us up. Local innovators say bottlenecks are killing Sri Lankan innovation.
So the know-how is here, the expertise here, there's enough young people to take products out to the world. We just have to focus and get the ducks in a row to get this going.
SOS. The Sri Lanka Retailers Association calls for emergency government relief measures.
Consider the retailers on a special tariff rate, provide us the necessary infrastructure in terms of the necessary power.
All this and much more coming up on First at 9 this Wednesday, the 30th of March 2022.
Lifebuoy shampoo chuti rupiah 70යි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, bringing you the very latest news from across Sri Lanka and the regional stage. This is First at 9 and I'm David Ebert. The 5th Summit of the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation took place in Colombo today, featuring virtual addresses by all heads of state of member countries. The focus this time around ranged from combating regional threats such as drug smuggling, religious extremism and terrorism, for which President Gotabaya Rajapaksa urged more cooperation between member states in terms of intelligence and knowledge sharing. Also addressing the summit today, Indian Premier Narendra Modi championed the rapid implementation of the Asian Development Bank designed master plan for transport connectivity, including the drafting of legal frameworks for coastal shipping and road networks as well. The 5th Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation commenced today, with the heads of state of all the member states delivering their addresses. Opening the forum today, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa used his address to remind BIMSTEC members of the importance of protecting the region from the threats of terrorism, religious extremism and narcotic smuggling.
Since its founding in 1997, BIMSTEC has grown into an important platform for countries in this region to support each other by sharing their experiences, strengths and expertise. This is especially important given our region's geostrategic importance. It is essential that littoral nations work together to ensure that threats to these waters as well as to regional states are curtailed. Such threats include traditional crime, including narcotics, smuggling, human trafficking, and terrorism, as well as the spread of religious extremism in this region. Managing such threats requires increased intelligence sharing and intergovernmental and interagency cooperation amongst BIMSTEC member countries. We can improve the security of the region for the benefit of all nations through this.
Meanwhile, during his address, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi applauded the adoption of a master plan for transport connectivity between BIMSTEC members and called for the quick implementation of coastal shipping and road connectivity legal frameworks.
The mainstay for better integration, better trade, better people-to-people relations between us is better connectivity. We cannot overemphasize this. Today, we have adopted the BIMSTEC Master Plan for Transport Connectivity. I express my gratitude to ADB for preparing this. We must make efforts to ensure the quick implementation of this master plan. In addition, we must move forward at a fast pace on connectivity-related initiatives that have been launched earlier. It is essential that we develop very soon a legal framework for establishing a coastal shipping ecosystem in the Bay of Bengal. It is also time now to go beyond discussions on electric grid interconnectivity and to operationalize it. The same way, it is also important to set up a legal framework for increasing road connectivity.
Gross domestic production for the year 2021 has seen positive growth of 3.7% when compared to 2020, says the Department of Census and Statistics. Reported in its latest national accounts estimates for 2021, the figure is just a fraction shy of the International Monetary Fund's Article 4 report projections of 3.6%.
According to the Department of Census and Statistics, Sri Lanka's GDP growth rate for the year 2021 has improved by 3.7%. The department reports that this is a very positive development compared to the 3.6% contraction the economy reported in 2020. 2020 GDP contracted mainly due to the pandemic-incurred loss of tourism revenue and lockdown measures. This is not far off from the International Monetary Fund's own rate, published in its Article 4 consultation report on Sri Lanka's economy. The report, compiled after discussions held in December 2021, showed GDP growth for last year to be at 3.6%. The rationale for the IMF projection was the fact that mobility indicators such as indicators of travel times and costs and variability in travel times and costs were returning back to pre-pandemic levels, along with the recovery of tourist arrivals in late 2021. However, the IMF stated that they expected GDP growth to be negatively affected by the impact of forex shortage and macroeconomic imbalances on economic activities and business confidence. Meanwhile, the report of the Department of Census and Statistics went on to say that the three major economic activities such as agriculture contributed 9%, industry 27.8% and services 57.5%. The report adds that during 2021, the major economic activities recorded moderately positive growth rates of 2%, 5.3% and 3% respectively. However, the department noted that the positive growth was only due to the 2020 contraction. Meanwhile, the report also showed fourth quarter growth to be at 1.8% in comparison to 1.3% during the same period of 2020.
Meanwhile, 13-hour-long power cuts have been approved by the Public Utilities Commission for tomorrow, leaving the public with only 11 hours of electricity throughout the day. Yesterday, the Commission approved 10-hour power cuts for today due to the unavailability of fuel to operate power plants, which has resulted in a loss of around 800 megawatts to the national grid.
Last week, the Ceylon Electricity Board denied media reports of a possible extension of scheduled power cuts up to 10 hours a day. The Public Utilities Commission also stated last week that power cuts will not be extended for 10 hours as the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has assured fuel supplies. However, the situation seems to have changed as of last evening, with the PUCSL now having approved a CB request to implement a 10-hour-long power cut today. CEB Chairman Janaka Ratnayaka stated that the decision was taken due to the unavailability of fuel to run power plants, and as a result, the national grid has lost around 800 megawatts of power. However, this afternoon the situation has now intensified further, with power cuts for tomorrow being extended by 3 more hours to 13 hours. Accordingly, areas A, B, C, D, E and F will experience power cuts for 3 hours from 3 am to 6 am, 4 hours from 12 pm to 4 pm, and then for 6 hours from 6 pm to 12 am. Further, areas G, H, I, J, K and L will experience power cuts for 3 hours from 12 am to 3 am, 4 hours from 8 am to 12 pm, and 6 hours from 4 pm to 10 pm. Areas P, Q, R and S meanwhile will have their power cuts for 3 hours from 3 am to 6 am, 4 hours from 12 pm to 4 pm, and 6 hours from 6 pm to 12 am tomorrow. Areas T, U, V and W will experience power interruptions for 3 hours from 12 am to 3 am, 4 hours from 8 am to 12 pm, as well as 6 hours from 4 am to 10 pm. Further, areas M, N, O, X, Y and Z will experience power cuts for 3 hours and 30 minutes from 5:30 am to 9 am, and 2 hours from 4 pm to 6 pm in the areas with feeders supplying to industrial zones. Speaking at a media briefing last evening, the PUCSL chairman further explained the reasons behind lengthy power cuts.
This is very unfortunate situation that everything has, gone beyond our control. So this is unavoidable. We have been trying to convince or take this message to respective agencies and authorities for last maybe couple of months. It has not probably, given any positive response, and therefore we are thinking of taking legal action against the other entities during this week. And we are going to make responsible the entities who are responsible to provide the finances, forex, exchange, and all those things. We need to make them responsible, because what happens is, end of the day, as citizens, we all face this lengthy power cuts, and it disrupts our day-to-day life and the business in the country.
Now, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has urged the public not to queue up at fuel stations today and tomorrow, as supplies may not be guaranteed. However, both the CPC and LP gas supplier Litro are assuring sufficient supplies throughout the upcoming Sinhala and Tamil New Year season due to supplies arriving next month.
Yesterday, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation was not able to unload diesel from a 37,500 metric ton shipment, as it couldn't come up with the $52 million to clear the shipment. With that being the case, the CPC is now warning customers to avoid queuing up for diesel today and tomorrow.
ඊයේ දවසේ ඉල්ලීමක් කරා මහ ජනතාවගෙන් ඩීසල් පිළිබඳව අපේ මේ දින දෙකේ ඉල්ලුමට සරලන ප්‍රමාණය ලබා දෙන්න හැකියාවක් නැහැ. එම නිසා ඉන්ධන පිරවුම් වලසල පෙළ ගැහිලා ඉන්න එපා කියන ඉල්ලීම අපි කරා. මම ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම ජනතාවට අපි ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙන්න ඕන. ඔවුන් මේ ඉල්ලීම යම් ආකාරයකට ඔවුන් පිළි අරගෙන තියෙනවා. ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම ඒ අනුව කටයුතු කරන බවක් පේනවා.
However, the CPC says that the diesel shortage will be short-lived after tomorrow, since 2 diesel shipments of 38,200 metric tons each are expected to arrive on the 1st and the 5th of April through the Indian line of credit. In the meantime, Minister of Energy Gamini Lokugi announced that his ministry has decided to purchase 6,000 metric tons of diesel from the Lanka Indian Oil Company. The stock is expected to be used for essential services. Meanwhile, on the country's gas situation, Litro Gas Lanka Limited has begun unloading an LPG shipment of 3,800 metric tons today. Gas queues outside most of the company's gas outlets across the country still continue. Facing the press after a long period of silence, Litro chairman Tesara Jaisingh announced today that steps have been taken to release about 100,000 gas cylinders into the market every day. Responding to complaints of gas dealers overcharging consumers, Jaisingh advised the people to either call Litro's hotline or make a police complaint. When asked whether there will be LP gas stocks in the market during the period of the Sinhala and Tamil New Year, Jaisingh had this to say.
ආයතනය අප්‍රේල් මාසය සඳහා ගෑස් මෙට්‍රික් ටොන් 30000ක ඇනවුමක් මේ වෙන විට සකස් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය කරන විශේෂම ණයවර ලිපි නිකුත් කිරීම සහ ඒ අදාළ කටයුතු ඔබ මා සමග මේ කතා කරන මොහොත වෙන විට සිද්ධ වෙමින් පවතිනවා. ඒක නිසා අප්‍රේල් මාසය සඳහා අවශ්‍ය වෙන ගෑස් අවශ්‍යතාවය ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා අපි මේ වෙන විට සමාගම පැත්තෙන් කළ යුතු සියලු කාර්යයන් සිද්ධ කරලා තියෙනවා.
Furthermore, the Litro Gas chairman was also quizzed on rumours of a hike in Litro Gas prices.
ඉල්ලීමක් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒක පෞද්ගලිකව අපි ආයතනයක් පැත්තෙන් ගත්තොත් ඒවා ඉන්සයිඩ් ඉන්ෆර්මේෂන්. ඒක මම සඳහන් කරලා තියෙන කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයට.
And we'll be back with more local news right after this break.
Big 3.
The Sri Lanka Retailers Association is appealing to landlords, business partners and the government to provide a special consideration for its members leasing properties and to provide special concessions when adding taxes, given the current situation in the country. The association says that the alternative would result in retailers having to cut down on locations, which would result in losses to all stakeholders.
The Sri Lanka Retailers Association is requesting landlords, lessors and business partners to reduce leases and rentals for its members. President of the association, Murali Prakash, has appealed to landlords and lessors to provide a 50% concession on rentals and leases on all forms of physical infrastructure or properties for the next 1 year. The association states that the forex shortage has gravely affected the retail business and taken it to a new low after COVID-19. As such, they are also appealing to their business partners to share costs when possible so as to ensure that the sector as a whole is sustained through these difficult times. The association believes that a cost-sharing strategy would be the most prudent way forward, given the current status quo of the country. The alternative, however, according to the association, would force retailers to consider reduced business locations, which could hurt many landlords and business partners and result in zero income. Speaking to AdaDerana English News, the Vice President of the Sri Lanka Retailers Association, Charitha Subasinghe, listed out his wish list for the government.
Provide us the necessary infrastructure in terms of the necessary power to operate, because even the generators, we need fuel and we can't find fuel. And secondly, if there are going to be any tariff increases on the power, please consider the retailers on a special tariff rate. At the moment, all the retailers are paying a commercial rate, which is the highest in the country, while the industrial sector as well as the tourism industry are on a special rate. Because if the retail industry does collapse, the cascading impact to the overall economy is going to be significant. And thirdly, any further taxation, we believe there is a social levy that is going to come in. Please consider us on a special tariff rate, simply because although our turnovers are large, our margins are relatively small, and any tax on our turnover is going to have a significant impact on our bottom lines. It is paramount that this industry is sustained, and that is basically our request from the government.
Now, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has issued another invitation to all parties who boycotted the first round of the all-party talks to join in for the next round of talks, as the government is willing to work with any practical suggestions submitted by any party. Addressing the farming community in Kurunegala, the Premier added that playing politics right now is not the need of the hour for Sri Lanka.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa today addressed farmers in the Kurunegala district at an event to mark the launch of a second phase of the Vari Saubhagya program that aims to rehabilitate 5,000 irrigation tanks across the island. The Premier urged all opposition parties to shed their political differences and unite with the government to bring about practical solutions to the current national economic crisis.
දේශීයත්වයට මුල් තැන දෙන ආර්ථික සංවර්ධන වැඩපිළිවෙල තමයි අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු. සමහරු හිතන් ඉන්නවා අපි මේව දන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. නොදන්නවා වගේ ඉන්නවද කියලා අහනවා. ඒ නිසා තමයි අපි මේ වෙලාවේ සර්වපාක්ෂික සමුළුවක් පෞද්ගලික දායකයන් කැඳවලා හිතලා හැමෝම අදහස් කර මේ ගොඩේන වේදිකා නිර්මාණය කරන්න අපි කටයුතු කරමු. කොවිඩ් වසංගත අපි හිතලා නිර්මාණය කරපු ගන්න නෙවෙයි. අපි සූදානම් හැම වෙලාවෙම විරුද්ධ පක්ෂේ වුණත් හොඳ ප්‍රායෝගික අදහස් අරගෙන ඉදිරියට යන්න. මේ රට තියෙන්නේ මේ දේශපාලන විතරක් කරන වෙලාවක් නෙවෙයි මේක. ඒ නිසා සර්වපාක්ෂික සම්මේලනයට නාපු අයට ඊළඟට වතාවේ එන්න එක්වන්නයි කියලා අපි ආරාධනා කරනවා. අලුත් අවුරුදු සමය ළඟ එනවා. ඇත්ත ප්‍රශ්නය දැක්කත් හෙට අනිද්දාට ඉන්ධන නැති වෙයි, ආහාර නැති වෙයි, හැමදේම වැඩි වෙයි කියලා බොරු බියක් ඇති කරගන්න ඕන නැහැ. ඒකයි මම කියන්නේ අපි අරුබුද තියෙන බව අපි පිළිගන්න ඕන. රාජ්‍යයක් විදියට අපි ජනතාවගේ දුෂ්කරතා මග ඇරවලා ඔවුන්ට ඉදිනදා ජීවිත ගෙන යන්න සහයෝගය අවශ්‍ය පහසුකම් අපි ලබා දීමට කටයුතු කරනවායි කියලා මේ අවස්ථාවේදී මතක් කරමින් ඔබ සියලු දෙනාටම සුබ අනාගතයක්.
Now, the Indian National Investigation Agency has charge-sheeted 6 suspects arrested for raising funds for a revival of the banned LTT organization in Tamil Nadu. The agency says that the suspects had used illegal means to siphon funds from dormant bank accounts to fund a revival.
India's National Investigation Agency filed a charge sheet in a special court in Chennai against 6 suspects accused of attempting to revive the banned Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam organization. The case was registered in 2021 by the Indian Criminal Investigation Department's Q branch in Chennai, but was later taken over by the National Investigation Agency in January. The suspects have been accused of being involved in a criminal conspiracy to revive the LTT using methods such as forgery for embezzlement, using forged documents to divert funds that have been lodged in dormant accounts, and to commit unlawful terror activities. During the investigation, it was found that 3 of the suspects identified Lechuman and Mary Francisca, Keniston Fernando, and Bhaskaran had conspired with foreign entities to siphon off deposits in dormant bank accounts using false Indian identity documents. The funds were to be used to revive and regroup, the banned outfit, investigators say.
Now, Sri Lanka has the talent for innovation but suffers from debilitating import-export bottlenecks that leave them lagging behind global competitors, says Vega Innovations co-founder Dr. Beshan Kulapala. Speaking to Indivari Amatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, he explained that the only way to give them a proper leg up would be a mix of right policies and a green import-export channel to speed up the process.
Sri Lanka has had its share of local innovators who have taken their ideas to the rest of the world and done well. However, in the current climate, after the pandemic wreaked havoc on economies and supply chains, the situation has become all the more harder to grow ideas, because despite the environment having changed, the policies haven't. Co-founder of Vega Innovations, Dr. Beshan Kulapala, says that it's not only new policies that are necessary, what would also help spur more development and production would be if clearance delays of vital raw materials and components were non-existent. He suggests that a green import-export channel, providing a quicker highway for goods coming in and out of Sri Lanka, may be the answer.
Did mention that there was a gap between policies and the aspirations or the capacity here. But what are the policy changes that you want or expect to be changed to shape this local production and to support locally grown products?
One of the biggest problems is that the policies are not geared around research and development. To have these value-added service products developed here, you have to spend a lot of time and energy, resources on R&D. If you don't do R&D, then you are just doing a minimal export product which you can't really compete in the world out there. So the policies have to be geared around R&D, not just for universities but for the private sector also. Universities have certain benefits for R&D through the university system and through some policies, but the private sector need more of that to really accelerate and develop new IPs, new proprietary technology that we can then claim a much larger right in the world market. And also the speed of the process is very, very slow. The getting approvals, getting components into the country, getting them cleared, it takes a lot of time. For an electronic engineering company, 6 days is a long time. In 6 days, some companies move so far that we get slowed down quite a lot. So there has to be policies around it, have green channels that you can import, export things very quickly so that you can accelerate.
But essentially we do have the know-how here.
Absolutely, we have really shown that from our work with Vega, with ChargeNet, the EV chargers, then the agriculture technology, AI Grow. So the know-how is here, the expertise here. There's enough young people to take products out to the world. We just have to focus and get the ducks in a row to get this going.
Welcome back. The Ministry of Defence today rebuked allegations that recently signed pacts with India would compromise Sri Lanka's national sovereignty. The ministry stated that it had followed through on certain criteria and procedures while channeling them through the Attorney General's office and the department and other state institutions.
The Ministry of Defence has issued an official response to media reports that have alleged that the recent maritime security pacts signed with the Indian government pose a threat to national security. The reports alluded that the receipt of the floating dock facility, Dornier reconnaissance aircraft and the setting up of a maritime rescue coordination centre in Colombo from India wouldn't threaten national security. The ministry explained that the floating dock has been in the pipeline since back in 2015 and would reduce the Ministry of Defence's annual outlay for outsourced dock repairs of 600 million rupees a year. On the subject of the Dornier reconnaissance aircraft, the Defence Ministry explained that the aircraft are set to be deployed for maritime surveillance, search and rescue operations, and to deliver information to various required platforms. The ministry explained that the unavailability of this capability by Sri Lanka has been a main motive for bilateral dialogues between the governments of India and Sri Lanka during the last couple of years. The ministry added that it was agreed upon to provide one Dornier reconnaissance aircraft to Sri Lanka free of charge. In its statement, the Defence Ministry assured that prior to the signing of the aforementioned 3 pacts, it has followed the standard criteria and procedures while channeling it through other mandatory state establishments, including the Attorney General's Department.
Since Russia launched a full-scale military invasion into Ukraine on the 24th of February, fighting has caused over 900 civilian deaths and pushed millions of Ukrainians to flee into neighboring countries. Even though Russia stated that it will drastically reduce military combat operations in 2 key areas during the peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, no progress has been seen so far.
Russia entered day 35 of its invasion of Ukraine with Russian forces having reached the outskirts of the Ukrainian capital within days of its initial invasion. Since then, progress has been slowed down by strong resistance by the Ukrainian military, and Ukraine claims its counter-offensives have successfully regained territory during the recent days. However, despite Russia's pledge yesterday at peace talks in Turkey to drastically reduce attacks in both areas, Kyiv officials accused Russia of continued missile attacks and heavy artillery shelling, including on residential areas. In this backdrop, a Russian cruise missile hit the regional government building in the southern city of Mykolaiv. Ukraine's state emergency services put the initial death toll at 12, with 33 others injured. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned the country should not lose vigilance following an announcement from Russia that it would dramatically scale back its military activities near Kyiv. However, Ukraine and Russia said they made progress in talks to end the war, with Kyiv presenting its proposal for a neutral status and international security guarantees. In a sign of progress, Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for the initiating of the treaty once the negotiations are complete, Moscow's chief negotiator said. In this backdrop, European countries of Belgium, the Netherlands, Ireland and the Czech Republic on Tuesday announced the expulsion of dozens of Russian diplomats suspected of spying in coordination action taken in the shadow of Moscow's war in Ukraine.
The Colombo Bourse ended in the red today after the all-share price index lost a further 352 points. The market was also halted for 30 minutes as the S&P SL20 index hit the 5% and the 7.5% circuit breakers.
At the Colombo Bourse today, the all-share price index lost 352.66 points to end at 9,294.89. The S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 3,196.19, following a loss of 141.84 points. Further, the market was halted for 30 minutes, twice, as the S&P SL20 hit the 5% and 7.5% circuit breaker. Share volumes, meanwhile, was 164 million, while the market turnover was 3.2 billion rupees. The transportation and food and beverage sectors were the top contributors to the turnover. Meanwhile, in a media communique, the Colombo Stock Exchange announced a change in S&P SL20 index constituents made by S&P Dow Jones indices at the 2022 March ad hoc index rebalance due to the amalgamation of Commercial Leasing and Finance PLC with LOLC Finance PLC, after which Commercial Leasing and Finance PLC would cease to exist. The said exclusion and inclusion as announced by S&P Dow Jones indices will be effective from the 31st of March 2022. In the meantime, oil prices jumped by more than 4% on Wednesday on supply tightness and the growing prospect of new Western sanctions against Russia, even as Moscow and Kyiv held peace talks.
And that's all the news we have for you tonight. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.